that mic working. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Q&A Corner presented by High Tech U. My name's Andrew and I am so thrilled to have you back again today for another amazing interview. If this is your first time dropping by, welcome to the stream. Today is all about interactive industry interviews, an opportunity for you to connect with people who are working and making the British Columbia technology sector such an amazing place to be. And I'm so thrilled for today's guest, who has been on our speaker docket far before anybody else came on. I'm pretty sure, and I was saying to her, I'm pretty sure she's the reason why everybody else actually signed up for this series for season 2 of Q&A Corner. And I'm so pleased to introduce our amazing guest who you probably know, and that's why you're here or why you're watching this video, Kaitlin Erb. So I'm just gonna pull over Kaitlin. There we go. Kaitlin, how's it going? All right, I think you're able to unmute yourself.
Good. Wow. Zoom. Magic world.
There we go.
Hi, I'm doing great.
Awesome.
How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm enjoying my extremely bright background right now, which is just making me realize that I need to invest in a much better setup if I'm going to continue doing these, especially when I look over on that side and I'm like, oh, that's a professional setup for somebody who does a lot of work from home.
I fully understand. I actually turned all the lights on in my apartment. Typically, I don't do that. So this is like, the production value here is also going up.
There we go.
Just for this.
Yeah. I love it. So thank you for being here. Obviously, we're incredibly excited to have you finally after many months of waiting. And Kaitlin, I don't know if you ever watched the stream before, but I always start the exact same annoying way for all of our guests, which is me explaining to other people how this whole thing works, it's pretty difficult. It's hard to understand, but here's what you're going to do. So if you're watching this stream live and you have a question as we're talking, over there or down there or up there or somewhere, there is a chat box where you can ask questions. If you are not chatting, if you are not here chatting and you're looking to get a question through, it's okay because we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, I'm pretty sure now. We're everywhere. You can ask us questions. You can just shout into the ether and I'm pretty sure eventually it will get to us. There's maybe some psychic connections that are possible. However, we're also just going to talk about stuff. So if you're here and just kind of like lurking in the background and you're like, I don't want to ask any questions, I just want to learn what a Kaitlin is or what a software developer is. That was very well timed.
Yeah.
This is, that's totally okay. And we're here for that. So this is going to be a lot of fun. But if you're catching this on YouTube, I'm super sad that you missed this live. But the great thing about these is all of these guests I am connected with by the emails and the social medias. So if you put a comment in the comment section below, I'll make sure the questions get to them and they will answer the questions in some way. Carrier pigeon, some sort of communication method. Yeah, so that is, that's it. If you're here for an interactive industry interview with Q&A Corner. We're super excited to have you. And now that I've done my classic 2 or 3 minute spiel, I'm going to turn it over to the person who you all really came to see while I go and do some backgroundy stuff. And Kaitlin, maybe you just want to introduce yourself a little bit and talk about yourself and your background and kind of how you got, sorry, it's a very broad question and I made the mistake yesterday. I will just say a little bit about yourself while I do some like sysadmin stuff in the background.
Okay, I will try. Hi, everyone. My name is Kaitlin Erb. I'm a developer at the company Workday. I've been at Workday for probably like a year and a half-ish. Other things about me that are important to note is I have a cat. He might appear, he might not. He really enjoys coming into meetings all the time. So that's always great. I guess I can get started on in terms of like my background. into how I got here, or?
Hold on. No, don't go too far. I realized that I always give very few guidance pieces there, and it's really it's very much my opportunity to go and make sure that the stream is fully working while I ask you an uncomfortable and vague question.
That's okay. I was prepared to talk for like 50 minutes if you needed that much.
I hope
I'm
not.
here.
So that's awesome. Thank you so much for a little bit of the background. So the first question is going to be one right from me, and then we'll maybe jump into some from the chat as people sort of come onto the stream and figure out what's going on. What the heck is an intermediate software developer? Like what is, and maybe more broadly, what is the pathway towards intermediate software developer? Like, is there a developer middle school that you go to and then you like get to be an intermediate, and then like there's a high school for developers and you become like a senior? Like, what does that job title mean?
So you have to like go on a quest and find a sword and then like pull the sword out, and then if you can do it, you become an intermediate.
I love it.
And there's like other quests, but yeah.
There's somebody out there right now that works at a tech company hiring intermediates who they're like, we've just found a new HR practice.
Perfect. I mean, that would spice it up. So so the path to becoming intermediate, I started as a junior, so I guess my entire path was I did a co-op when I was in my computer science degree, and I did that co-op at Workday. After that co-op, I ended up getting a job offer to come back. So finish your computer science degree, we would love you back. Came back, I worked as a junior, and then after a while, when you start acquiring certain skills, which can be communicative, team building, just technical, there might be a time where your manager's like, hey, we really appreciate the work and effort that you are putting in, and you've been doing it consistently. And so we're going to pop you up from junior to intermediate. And so that's where my title is.
Thank you. I'm glad that I was thinking that that's what it was. Actually, sorry, the reason that I ask is I was at a meeting back in 2018, back in the before times, when we could interact with people and have meetings. And I remember being in a room with a bunch of founders and CEOs, and there was this massive argument in this room about, we don't have enough senior talent. There's a ton of junior talent and there's not enough senior talent. And then there was somebody that said, but our really big problem is we don't have enough intermediate development talent. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then there was a conversation that somebody that was non-technical came in, and they said, oh, can you tell me what an intermediate software developer is? And almost everyone at the meeting, I mean, you saw this look of like, ooh, I knew somebody was going to ask that question, but they weren't quite able to answer exactly what it was. So it's nice to hear it from someone who's in that position, what it is.
It's definitely a very like nebulous term. I feel like any kind of title based, like junior developer, intermediate, senior, I think part of the hardness of describing it is the fact that different companies view it differently. So my actual title at Workday is like software developer, senior associate. But for the general public, that can be described as like intermediate software developer, because that's the typical lingo that people use.
Totally.
So I can understand like it's a weird space when you get into like differences of titles.
True. So, but you came into this from a very different title. So you did not, you took a very zigzaggy path into your current world in technology. I'm curious, and just so you know, so in the social media post that I did for this, I said, how do you go from being a teacher to being a software developer? So how do you go, and why, I guess, is a bigger question, do you go from being a teacher where you're obviously making tons of money,
so much,
very short work hours, like you're in school, like 6-hour days, 2 months off in the summer, very little work. Why would you want to give up all of that for this world of software development that you're in now?
Yeah, well, I guess I can, because that kind of ties into like my journey into software development. So I'll start like a little bit in high school, where when I was in high school, I was told that I couldn't do math. And so I shouldn't pursue STEM. I should do what I'm good at, which is humanities. So I ended up going into art education, which I loved. It like I'm so thankful that I have that degree. It was so much fun, loved it. But I had always really wanted to do STEM, but was told that like I couldn't do it. And for me, I really care about having a wide breadth of knowledge. So kind of excluding STEM and only focusing on humanities was very antithetical to that. So I ended up being like, you know what? I'm at the end of my education degree. I'm just going to do it. I know people think that I can't do math and computer science, but like I've set everything up. I'm going to try. I'm going to enter this math class. If I fail, I fail. That happens. I'm just going to do it. So I enrolled in this math class, and I got the first assignment, and then I immediately dropped out because I had no idea what was happening. And so I am very stubborn. And so I was like, I'm not going to give up that easily. I entered this like math catch-up course from like math from grade 8 to grade 11. Really hard. Like I cried every day, but I was really happy because I really enjoy math. I did really well in that class. I ended up going back to the math class that I dropped out of, did that, cried far less, loved it, ended up doing computer science classes, loved those. And so I started kind of developing this like really deep love of computer science. It was definitely like a different vibe than education and the humanities. And it was something that I was really missing in my own personal development and personal growth. And so I was really like attracted to this. But the big part was I was doing a computer science final, and like I have terrible test anxiety. I've been on tests where I've looked up and then I've looked down and I've looked up again and 20 minutes have passed and I haven't written anything. But I was in this computer science final and I didn't know the answer to a question. And I just remember instead of getting anxious, I was just excited. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go home and I'm going to figure out what the answer is. I was so jazzed. And that was really like the turning point where I was like, yeah, I really want to go into computer science. So I finished my education degree. Again, I really loved it. It was such a great experience to teach kids. But again, like the personal growth, it felt like development was like where I wanted to be. So I ended up getting my computer science degree and now I'm here.
I love that. So I love that also. So there's a couple of things that I really want to dig into there, but I just got to say, so we bookended our Q&A corner this week with two folks that did an art-related degree at the University of Victoria and are now working in tech. So I don't know if you know Veronica Best from Dispatch. So she's their director of product over there, has a master's degree in art history from UVic. Anyways, and so obviously art education is a different piece, but this is also a very exciting because we're also on the tail end of International Day of Women and International Week of Women in STEM. And I want to jump back to something that you said because I think there's a lot to unpack there in terms of that teacher conversation around you're not good at math. So was that like an outright thing that like a teacher in high school was like, you're just not good at this? Wow.
Yeah, I distinctly remember I got 56% in Math 11. And I remember that because I was like, as soon as I finished it, I was like, I'm never going to do math again. And I remember, I guess, like going through my education degree, because you have to like really define your pedagogical approach. And for me, I was like, I can never imagine telling a student that they couldn't do something. And so I think definitely at the end, I was getting really like, oh, I shouldn't listen to them. Like, they don't know me. They don't know what I'm interested in. And I feel like a lot of the time, like, especially with the conversations around like where I should go in terms of career growth, people probably had really good intentions, but like sometimes, intentions can still have negative impacts. And so I think their goal was, well, we don't want you to be as stressed or like feel super challenged. We want you to have like an easy path. But for me, like I really like that challenge and I really liked doing math. And so it was a very interesting piece and definitely like being able to segment that off and go, yeah, you know, as a teacher, I would never want to say that to a student. So why should I listen to that? I should just do what I'm excited about doing. I had a really great support network of friends and professors who were excited that I wanted to try these out. So it was a really nice like transition.
Very cool. So I'm curious though, was it a like, I'm trying to be very like careful in the way that I say this because I'm coming to this from like a very, and I've said this on other streams, like I am the like quintessential privileged position. I'm a straight white heterosexual cis guy living in an upper middle class community and working in a post-secondary institution. So I have so much there. Do you think that a lot of that conversation was that a specific to you thing? Was it something that you're seeing a lot? Because I mean, within the tech sector, even within post-secondary, there's a lot of conversations. There's a mission right now to get to 30 by 30 by Engineers Canada. 2030, we're looking to get 30% women into engineering programs. That seems really low, and there's got to be something that's going on there. Did that play in at all to that conversation, do you think?
I don't know if it played into the conversation, but it definitely played into my mindset. I guess like growing up, I had always only seen guys do tech. And so that kind of solidified a lot of like, oh yeah, like, yeah, maybe men are developers. But when I entered just university, I started meeting people from all walks of life who were in development. And that kind of motivated me to be like, oh yeah, okay. When you see people who look like you or think like you in a space that like you're excited about, it makes it so much more motivating to be like, yeah, maybe I can be that person. And so I know for me, because I did a bunch of volunteering from the transition of like my education degree to computer science in the community, specifically with Canada Learning Code. And they have a ton of mentors who are like devs that are women. And so I guess growing up, I had this feeling of like, oh, maybe it's like more men. And then I started meeting like so many more women in tech, and it became like, oh yeah, no, it's for everyone. And where I work now, I think our dev team is like, I think our team's like half men and half like not men. Like I think it's like women and non-binary folks. So it's pretty even keel, which is like really nice. You kind of get motivated to it. So I do think that it played a bit of a role, at least in my mindset.
Fair enough. So speaking of the team that you're working on, so Workday, every time that I look at Workday, and I know a lot of folks that work at the company, I have zero clue what Workday does, except I know that a lot of cool people work there. So I'm curious, like, A, what the heck is Workday? And B, there's obviously lots of pieces to it. Where do you fit? Like, what kind of a team do you fit on within that world?
Yeah, so my Workday spiel is Workday is a cloud-based HCM company for enterprise businesses, which is a fancy way of saying we help larger companies run. So one of our customers is Netflix. So if you are somebody who works at Netflix, you can submit time off requests through us. You can get your payroll through us. You can do org charts, do learning. Like there's a bunch of different products that we have inside of Workday, but it's all just to make it like a one-stop, easy shop for people to just be able to manage their business and manage their people. And then I guess for what I do, and my little segment in Workday is I work on integrations. So I build out products that connect Workday into Slack and Teams. So I do a lot of that integrating. So just like if you wanted to submit a time off request and you didn't want to go to Workday, you didn't want to go to the mobile app, you can just like submit one via Slack and we pick it up, we send it off to Workday.
Very cool. So now the big question that comes out of that conversation, now that you work in integrations, which is the better chat platform, Microsoft Teams or Slack? And I'm pretty sure that Salesforce owns Workday and now owns Slack. So be very, I guess maybe be careful.
I don't think I'm. Oh no, God is breaking up. Wow.
Am I right though? Because Workday's owned by Salesforce, right?
Workday is its own thing.
Oh, is
Salesforce
it really?
owns Slack. Yeah,
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that's a pretty cool job. So you're not only building just on like like having to know that internal technology stack of the Workday platform, but also all of these other like APIs and wow. So how does that work? Because that's a huge amount of every API. I mean, APIs are similar and people are using similar systems, but like, is it mostly just you having to map the different functionalities that are available on the APIs to things that are available in Workday? Like, what does that process actually look like of, say, here's a cool new app that's out there, like that companies are using at the enterprise level. Workday's going to build an integration. What does that process look like for you?
Yeah, we have a bunch of different people from a bunch of different roles who are always like in communication with Slack or Microsoft, and they kind of figure out like, oh, what can we do on those platforms? And then we have people on our side who do user experience, and they'll say like, okay, well, what do the users of Workday, what would they like to see? And so it's a lot of higher up conversations around what kind of products, what kind of features do we want to build out? And then once we get, like as the developers, once we get through all of that, like maybe somebody on UX is going to say like, yeah, we really want the ability to like approve and deny time off requests, not just, see like, oh, like a manager gets a time off request and they're like, oh, somebody has a time off request. I'll click on this link and it directs to Workday. They really want to be able to like approve and deny it from right there. We kind of get those features from our product managers who talk to the UX, who talk to the people at Slack and Microsoft, who can be like, here's the frameworks, here's everything, how you plug into us, here you go. And so we then can take all of that learning and then talk to the teams at Workday. It's a lot of communication and pivoting in case, the response we get back from this API isn't actually what we expected, and trying to like manage all of that. So it's really like tight-knit team of, trying to make sure that everyone is in communication and knows what we're doing. And hopefully coming up with a product that people like. Yeah,
there you go. So it's interesting because you're, if you don't mind me saying, you're in a unique position within the world of tech because you come from an art background, which is obviously that UX, the design side of things. You've got a handle on that. You're coming from the teaching angle, so you've got a handle on communication with people and stakeholders, and you've got this computer science degree, so you have like all of these abilities. Have you found that that's been like a really helpful thing, or has it actually been a hindrance because you're like, I know how to do that and I could be doing it better?
Oh no, I work with incredibly fantastic people, and so they're like, we have a designer, she does her thing, and I'm like, that's amazing. I just implement it and hope for the best. But like, I feel like all of my skill sets have just harmonized really well. I haven't really had any like pushback on it. It's been a lot of finding the areas that I'm, more comfortable with, and then challenging myself on the areas that I'm not as comfortable with. So it's definitely been nice to have all of these things, like the communication aspect. I write a ton of documentation. That's a thing that I love doing, but I don't want to tell my team that because I don't want them to make me write all the documentation.
Sorry, I'll cut this out. It'll be gone.
Thank you.
So it'll never be proof.
Great. But like, yeah, in education, like that's what you do. You write a lot of, like, you do a lot of curriculum planning. And so like, yeah, I want to make sure that I have really good documentation so that people are always in the know about like new things. And then for the design and art background, UX and all of that stuff, it's really nice because I think it can lend you this ability to consider how your users feel more often. So you kind of reach out more and you're like, oh yeah, you know what? I don't think this is going to be the best user experience. Maybe we should pivot and do something like this. So it's been a huge help in a lot of regards.
Yeah, I remember. So the term unicorn, for anybody that's on the stream, and we should recognize that you're all here. So hi, everybody. If you're on the stream, you can throw a question in the chat over there because we'd love to hear from you because we're just kind of chatting right now. But so in the world of tech stream followers, a unicorn company is a company that ends up being valued at $1 billion, which generally means it's done a very, very good thing. So I had a conversation, this would have been summer 2019, with a CEO, and he said, there's not just unicorns in companies, there's unicorns in developers. And the unicorn in a developer is a developer that can both build beautiful code and talk to people and think about the customer. And it's interesting because I said, well, you'd think that there's a lot of those people that are out there. And it turns out that there are not. Like, they were like, we would pay a mountain of gold to have like a team full of these developers. Is that like, I mean, you've been in this world for a while now. Do you find that there seems to be a trend there where folks are very wanting to be in their own zone and not wanting to have to deal with the chaos of customers? Or is that just maybe an individual company experience?
I think it might be an individual company experience. I know for us, my team specifically, like, everyone on our team wears a lot of hats and everyone's kind of like constantly pushing themselves to grow. So I think like in a weird way, we're all like a bit of unicorns because we do like, we do support, we talk to customers, we're doing like a bunch of stuff for our jobs. So yeah, I think it might be company specific.
It might be company. I was gonna say,
yeah.
I'm literally searching right now to see if I can find a unicorn thing to add to the head. But you're right, actually. And I look at Workday, I look at Willem Broads, Kaitlin Erb, like the folks that I know. Like all of the people are the best people, but also just like it is like Workday. I think just attracts also potentially a really awesome audience of folks. So we've kind of gone down the high school education route. We've talked a little bit about the university experience and what that was like. I'm super interested to explore like that transition period between like graduating and then going and doing all that volunteer stuff, because like side hustle piece for this, or side, that's not the right word. So ulterior motive for this is just to like let people know that are out there watching the stream of like things that are available in the community. So what is Canada Learning Code?
Canada Learning Code is a nonprofit that teaches people how to code. So when I was entering the tech scene and I was doing all my volunteer stuff, I actually went to the first ever event that Canada Learning Code held, but I went as a learner instead of a mentor. Because I was like, I don't know if I know anything. And when I went, I was like, oh, actually, like I feel pretty comfortable with the material that they're teaching. So the next time I came back and I mentored. So Canada Learning Code is a great way to, interact with more of the tech community, get your face out there, get your name out there. There's also like a variety of other things like Startup Slam, which is held by Dispatch. Fantastic. Again, you're out there, you're learning because they have multiple different streams. There's hackathons. So I personally am not a hackathon person. The hackathons that I enjoy attending are the hackathons where the sole purpose is to create something useless. Those are my hackathons, and I love them.
I'm looking for the old site, but I think it's gone now, because you were involved in Hackathing that was created, right?
Yeah, because I also did a bunch of things in the computer science department. So I was part of the web dev club. So there was Hackathing, Hack UVic, a variety of like small little like hackathon based clubs and stuff.
I'm just,
Yeah, Hackathon.
I'm pulling it up here. I wonder if the site is still, oh, that's so sad. But you know what? I'm going to find it because I have found this thing. Also, the site was just so awesome. But yeah, so this is the site. This is Hackathon.
We actually created that for Google. But that was one of the projects.
And for folks that are out there, and again, keeping in mind our audience is all over the place, some people will be like, why are you explaining this? Like, what is a hackathon? Like, what is that experience for somebody that's going?
Yeah, so hackathon and hackathons in general, you go in, there's sometimes if it's like a really big hackathon, it's like the goal is to create something and they have a theme and it's going to be like, create something that's going to better humanity in ways that is going to promote like environmental friendliness or something. And then people will form teams and they will come up with some sort of product, some sort of design. It depends on like how technical your team is. I've been to hackathons where people have not produced any code and it's an idea that they're pitching rather than the code itself. So you can go about that route. But you come together as a team, you try to create something, and then you present it, and people come by and they judge it and they say, yeah, this is really great. They might categorize it. Maybe you'll win something. Sometimes there's a lot of rewards that you get from it. That's kind of like the general experience. With Hackathon, it was a very kind of casual hackathon. We had it was really casual. We had fake awards. Well, not really fake awards. They were like these meme awards that were like, there were like doges everywhere that we would give people. It's just like, the general, like, you tried stuff. Yeah, Again, like I find that hackathons are like really, really stressful. So for me, my ideal hackathon is just, low stress, create something for the sake of creating something, not for, it's going to change humanity. Just enjoy what you're making. Have fun.
Totally. I'm just trying to pull up. I realized that I was on mute before. So have you heard of these guys? Now, they don't exist anymore, but had you ever heard of ProtoHack?
Yeah.
So I absolutely love this concept. It is so cool. Like, I'm so sad they've gone under. They've disappeared. But what's really cool is in the world of tech and pivots. So the founder of this company. So one of the projects that was created during ProtoHack was a set of like playing cards to teach empathy. And that was turned into an educational startup called SoftServe. So they pivoted from ProtoHack to this awesome soft skills education company called SoftServe, and like they've gone from one thing to another. But I was so sad when I found out that ProtoHack wasn't a thing, because like Hackathon was really cool because there aren't any kind of like low hanging fruit hackathons out there, right?
Yeah, that's kind of my big thing. I love the low hanging fruit hackathons. Like, I went to one hackathon, and what I made, it was like my first hackathon ever. I made a Beyonce Chrome extension, which like that clearly benefits humanity, and everyone is so much better off that I created that.
But you did a thing. You made a thing.
It did a thing. I made a thing. And then when I went to my co-op at Workday, one of the first things that we were meant to do that was going to teach us like the whole entire code process was to work on a Chrome extension. And so this like thing that I made, just like, oh, I think it's funny, it was like directly beneficial. So the low-hanging fruit hackathons, I think, are so great. It's just create thing, have fun.
Now, were you using GitHub at the time, or did you have to go and just like search for the code that you had created that was stored somewhere that it shouldn't have been?
I used GitHub.
Oh, okay.
I very thankfully I entered the tech field with knowing a lot of people who are already in development who were very, very helpful and sometimes very, very blunt with their criticism. So I learned really fast. Like, oh, here's what you can do, and here's how you can like optimize your stuff. So yeah, I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
Even their blunt criticism.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if there's one thing that you can say about particularly the Victoria tech scene, and I don't know if this is universal across the board, but I find the tech scene, welcoming to an outside audience, but also, like, they will be brutally honest and will not care, like, who hears it, because you'll be like, oh, yeah, that's just so-and-so being so-and-so. Like, yeah, everybody knows that, and everybody knows everybody. Everybody is a co-founder or like worked for somebody. Yeah. I had a conversation. I was in a class yesterday for my grad work, and I had a conversation with somebody who I was like, what do you do? And it turns out they work in like venture capital investments for the federal government or for the provincial government. And I Googled them, and they were like super connected into the tech sector. And then I reached out to somebody that I know. I was like, how do you know this person? They were like, oh yeah, like when I was starting in the tech scene, I knew this person. So it's such a small world that everybody just wants to share, but also in a very brutal way.
Yeah, it's good, and yeah, I'm just gonna say that it's good. I don't mind the like bluntness. Like, I remember the first code I wrote, I was trying to get out of a for loop, and I didn't know that break statements existed.
Okay.
And like that's the thing that I probably should have known in that class, but I didn't. And so I showed somebody this like hacky solution that I came up with, and they were like, oh my gosh, good job. I'm so proud of you. Don't do that again. I was like, oh, okay. Well, guess I won't.
Okay, so let's go down the technical road. I like this. We're talking like biggest tech kind of boo-boos. And like go in as depth as you want, because there will be somebody watching this stream who's like, please tell me what variable you defined and how you like use the wrong logic type. But like, what's kind of the biggest tech boo-boo that you've run into? Maybe one not about your current employer who doesn't know.
Oh, I was going to do one of those.
No, you can do that too.
It's not super big. I was trying to deploy a bunch of things, and then I accidentally canceled this deploy. Like, it was to like my own code stack thing. I was like, I'm trying to figure out what words are useful. I was trying to do a certain thing, and I canceled this request halfway through because I got scared or something. I was like very new on this product. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna deploy all these things, and then I stopped the deploy, and then I went into AWS, and I went and I like found that where the stack was, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna cancel this thing, and then I didn't do that properly, and then I had to destroy like all of my code and stuff and restart it, and it took like an hour or something. It was really bad. And I had to like talk to a senior dev to be like, I did this thing accidentally, and he was like, it's okay, you know, it happens to people. And I was like, okay, but I felt so bad. So it was just this like very simple thing that I'm like, why didn't I just wait for this one thing to finish? And also then not go into this thing and then press a bunch of buttons that I didn't really know what they did.
AWS is scary though. Like, it is an intimidating system. High Tech U is part of the AWS Educate program. Like, so shout out AWS for having an Educate program. I have used it 0 times because when you go in, their UX is not ideal. Like, it's very, they're trying to make sure they can track everything in the most like it's a very AWS system. Yes. And but anyways, like, you go in and for those who are on a stream and you've never used AWS, it's a great system. It's incredibly powerful, but it gives you everything. It's like, here's the grocery store. Yeah. Go and figure out how to make a cookie using what's in here.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, that was essentially, so like I was trying to bake a cake essentially with what I was doing, and then I stopped at the process where they're like, add eggs. And then I was like, okay, and then I tried to take eggs out, and the eggs didn't come out. And then I went to the AWS console, and I was like, take the eggs out. And it was like, you can't undo this. you've already actually mixed in the eggs, and now you have to completely throw the whole batch out. This is a great analogy.
This is a great analogy, actually. This is, we both figured out your problem, and I, in that moment, figured out what my issue was with AWS when I was in there. So that's a win.
Yeah. Yeah, right? It's one of those things where it's like, it's a very powerful system, and not knowing like the full extent of how to use it, you're like, ugh. I'm like, you can get by with not knowing the full extent, but when some small thing breaks, you don't really know what's going on, sometimes that can be like hurts.
Totally. Well, and you look at it too, it's funny because you wonder in those. So is Workday's on an AWS stack then?
Yeah, so we use AWS, yeah.
So but have you used other kind of cloud infrastructures, so like Google Cloud or any of those things?
So with Workday being really big, there might be other teams that use it. At Workday, I've always only ever used AWS.
I was going to say, the only reason I ask is just because, like, if you're a new programmer or a young programmer, like, I would personally, not being a programmer, I would still recommend steer away. Like, Firebase is a super easy, basic, less scary system that will probably give you all the functions that you need without all of the scary bills that will come from AWS.
Yeah, the scary bills are scary.
Yeah, I have a note saved in my inbox right now because what they do with AWS for education is they like give you a credit on your account, and then they stop covering your credit at a certain point in time. And they were like, AWS is not covering your credit, so I had to go and try and figure out if I was actually using any services that I would get paid for. I'm still waiting for a bill that I will receive from them for like hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's all right. Hey, listen, this is what you get for thinking that you know what you're doing when you really don't know what you're doing. There's fake it till you make it. There's fake it till you make it, and then there's trying to figure out how to use a cloud service like AWS.
See, I've just decided I am just going to be incredibly blunt and honest about everything. Like, when I started on my team, we did a lot of pair programming, and I was like, I don't know what I know, and I don't know what I know. And also, I get really nervous, sitting in the driver's seat pairing. So I might completely forget how to do really basic things that to me might have actually been advanced, but to you, because they're senior devs, I'm like, it might be really basic. So just being blunt and honest and being like, I don't know. We'll try our best. We'll see where we land. We'll get somewhere. We'll find some Stack Overflow that might help, maybe.
So there's a question that I want to go a couple different directions, but I'm interested on your take on as somebody who's in the world. Mm-hmm. Students that are out there, we work with a lot of high school students. One of the things we tell them when they come through our academy program is we say, here's your order of solving things. Step number 1, go to Stack Overflow and search for it. Like, just take a code sample that you have and search on Stack Overflow. Step 2, go to Google and do the exact same thing and then search through the results, which will probably be Stack Overflow. And then number 3, ask an adult or a peer and see if they can help you. Like, how much of your job is just like searching for the way that somebody else solved a problem and then trying to find a way to replicate it safely?
I feel like when I first started, it was a lot more Stack Overflow, honestly, like a lot more. And now I'm like, okay, I got it. But like, I paired all of today with one of my coworkers, and it was on like this testing framework that I was like, we'll look at Stack Overflow and figure it out. But I think as I've gotten more comfortable in my role, it's been mostly like the actual documentation for it. So like this testing framework, instead of really searching Stack Overflow, I'm like, I'm going to look at this documentation that this company wrote and then try to figure out where it goes. And then there's other cases where like I've now also been able to, if whatever I'm integrating with or working on is public facing, I just go to their GitHub and then I just scroll through their code, specifically their tests. Their tests are really great. If you're ever stuck on something and you don't know how to call like a specific function or things, go to the tests in like the GitHub, because they'll tell you like, does this actually work? Make sure this works.
Do you have an example that I can like pull up of like a GitHub that you're aware that has like a test, like a public test folder? I wonder.
Not off the top of my head.
Sorry, you talk, I will search.
Yeah, you can. That's one of the weirdest things that I've started noticing. So yeah, because like I go to Stack Overflow. Sometimes there's nothing, because I think at a certain point, like there's no Stack Overflow post for specifically what you're looking for.
Totally.
So then GitHub, great resource, especially if you're in an organization, you can sometimes see if like other teams outside of your org or outside of your team have also ran into that similar issue. And then, yeah, so like checking GitHubs, and oh man, if they have a testing framework, that's so great.
I'm like searching through, and you can tell that this GitHub is literally just pulling up things that I have looked at recently, which are like in no way really related to anything right now that's going to be important. But let's see. I doubt that this guy has a test folder. No, it does not look like it. Anyways, not important. But the cool thing is, go and look on GitHub. Go find things on GitHub, and that will be valuable for you.
Yeah, because after you get comfortable writing code, you can get more comfortable reading code, you can get more comfortable with all of these things, and then searching and looking at somebody else's code and trying to dissect it is really useful. So a lot of the time, if I'm integrating with something, I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, let's figure this out. I think maybe like Microsoft's adaptive card framework.
Oh, okay. Let's see if we can find that.
Yeah, I don't know if they have testers, but I did look at their code recently to try and figure out how they did a specific thing. So like if you're integrating with any framework or looking at any framework, that tends to be pretty good. Yeah. I don't know exactly where it would be.
Yeah, I was gonna say this will be.
Yeah, I'm like,
this will be a search. This will be like a search to find anything that's valuable.
Anything. Maybe.
Specs.
Yeah, I want to see specs.
Nope. Let's see.
Yeah.
Jump for tests.
Okay.
Oh. Android test. Oh, there. It's fine. It's definitely finding. Oh, there we go. There's like a test.
Yeah. Yeah, testing layout.
No idea.
Yeah, so if you go through a GitHub and you see that they happen to have tests, and let's say like if you're trying to be like, oh, how do I don't know, like wrap an element, or how does this element work? Like, see if there's a test for that. And then you can like figure out like, oh yeah, this is how this framework is supposed to run, which is very fun. You feel kind of detective-y because you're like, look, I'm so hardcore. I'm like looking at the code, analyzing it. I got it, figured out just one small kernel.
Okay, so that maybe draws into a good next question that feeds ultimately over into my final question in about 10 minutes. And before I ask it, if you're on the stream and you're watching and you're lurking and you're like, I want to send a question, but I don't know how to do it, you can just put it in the chat over there or down there or up there. You can yell it. You can psychically telepath it. You can put it anywhere you want. You can, if you're catching this on YouTube, you can also still put it down below. We're having a conversation. We're here with Kaitlin Erb, intermediate software developer at a brilliant local branch of a global company, Workday, that makes really cool HRM related things. And if you don't know what HRM is, that's okay. Go to workday.com and you can find out a little bit more. We're talking all things tech. I normally do this at the halfway point, but this was just a good conversation, so they're getting to this at the end. So I'm curious, what's your favorite part? So what is your favorite part about being in this world, about being a software developer, and getting to do it professionally and having them give you a large paycheck to do it?
Yeah, that's nice.
There is that.
So much better than the paycheck I got as a teacher.
Yeah.
Or whatever, rather. I'm super biased, and my thing is always going to be, I like my team. I'm very thankful that I'm on the team that I'm on. I really enjoy that I'm learning from people who are just like so skilled. That's by and large like my favorite thing about my job, because there's a lot of things that I really appreciate learning, and there's a lot of things that I'd like to challenge myself on. And I think working with a team that always challenges themselves and all like they're always trying to do that like the best that they can really inspires you to do that. And so I think that would probably be my favorite part, is just having that really great team in like wanting to grow my skills and being able to do that in like a really fun way. Like our team's always doing something fun all the time. So it's really nice.
So now the other side of the coin, what are the things that you have to deal with as a software developer that you're not a huge fan of?
Emotions that I have.
Yeah, that's a hey, listen, I'm with you 100%. That said, I get frustrated after about like an hour one of dealing with a small bug, and then I'm just like, I'm out, I'm done.
Oh, for me, like I don't mind the frustration. Like the frustration's good. I think like the hardest part is dealing with like any negative self-talk that you might have. So like feeling like you're inadequate or anything like that. That's probably the hardest part of, at least like for me, that's the hardest part of my job, is just, oh, okay, like am I doing the right thing? Like am I here and do I deserve to be here? Like though sometimes like you get bogged down in the like that negative self-talk, and like that can sometimes be really difficult to manage. Because yeah, maybe like you have this really hard bug and you're just like, oh, like I know like I need to tackle this and you need to get it out. And like maybe it's because like you're just getting more and more frustrated because you skipped lunch or you've been staring at your screen for too long or something. And then you might start like beating yourself up. I think like navigating those emotions is like, I feel better about navigating those emotions now than when I was starting out. But when I was starting out, that was definitely like the hardest part. And even now, to some extent, if I get hit with that, it's sometimes I'm just like, okay, let's work through these feelings.
So
but
it's been a while. It's been a while since this is like on the stream. We've had a conversation about like that imposter syndrome idea. Like, what's your advice for? I'm gonna ask you a little bit later on a more tough question, but like, what's the advice that you would have for somebody who's new into the world that is feeling that way? That they're like, I'm not good enough to be here. I shouldn't be here. Like, what's your advice you would give to them?
I would say try to find a community or people who will support you, because chances are it might be that you're just, it's negative self-talk. You are feeling bad about yourself and it's not an accurate reflection of truly your skills. For me, the biggest advice I think ever give, and this is probably anyone, is to strive to be introspective. For me, looking at my negative emotions and negative self-talk, and like anytime I've felt like an imposter or anything like that, and I've tried to analyze like where the root cause of those feelings is coming from, it's made me come up with solutions on how to tackle them easier. So if I feel bad, if I feel like I might be an imposter or anything like that, it often stems from my own high expectations that I put on myself, that I assume other people have for me. But it's all just really like, it's just me projecting that. And so then I can think like, okay, how do I navigate having high expectations? Is it a rational thing for me to have high expectations? Like maybe I'm working in a code base I've never really touched. Is it rational for me to think that I should, be able to write so much code in this code base without actually having invested a lot of time in? So I think analyzing your feelings, trying to, categorize them, break them down, figuring out that root cause, and then getting into noticing those patterns of negative self-talk and the roots and all of that coming up with those solutions. I think that's like the best advice I could give somebody trying to navigate that.
So I just gotta say, every single time that we do one of these streams, there's always like a moment that I'm like, this is the piece. Like, if nobody catches the rest of this stream at all, like, just ignore the I mean, it's all been good, but ignore the previous. And it happens in every interview, and that is like 100%. Like, it's such a salient piece of advice that I think you don't consider when you're necessarily getting into the career. You're like, I want to be the best programmer. I want to be able to like write the most code the fastest with the least errors.
Yeah, and the thing is, you're always going to have errors. You're always going to encounter bugs and encounter challenges. But what matters most is how well you take on those challenges and how you can like walk through them and really, you know, you're going to fall. That happens. You're going to fail sometimes. That happens. But hopefully you're going to be part of a team, and that's really supportive. Hopefully you're going to have, you know, friends, family, whomever, who's also going to support you. Yeah, it's a tough thing to navigate, but I hope that it's something that a lot of people, you know, really strive for.
I love that. That is, man, every time I'm like, I'm so lucky to be connected with so many awesome people. And like, if you're out there and you are watching this stream and or you're watching this on YouTube and you're like, why would I ever want to move to Victoria aside from the beautiful weather, the like amazing outdoors, and the like super rich place to live? Honestly, like in the tech sector, I could like leave all of that behind. It could be like minus 75 degrees every day, and like you couldn't want to do anything. And the people that are in the local technology sector here are amazing. Yourself, like, incredibly included in that group, Kaitlin. Because like this is I mean, I've now done, I think we're on like, this is 25 interviews that we've done on this series in the last year. And every single time I'm like, man, I wish that I had this. I wish I could have connected with some of these people.
Yeah, I think for me, that was like doing community outreach, volunteering, talking to these people, connecting with these people. Like it really motivated me to enter this space and to feel good. Like even, I remember like, I felt so bad one day when I was in my computer science degree. I thought that I had failed a test, and I walked up to Yvonne Cody, who's a professor at UVic. And I remember just being like, Yvonne, I feel bad. And she just, with like all of this energy, was like, because I don't even think she really knew who I was. I just knew of her, and I looked at her as a mentor, and she just looked at me and she went, Kaitlin, the world needs you. Like, and she said that like 5 times. And by the end, I was like, yeah, Vaughn, you're right. Yeah, people in the tech sector, you included as well, Andrew, just very, very lovely. You get a lot of motivation from them.
I love that. Yeah, shout out to Yvonne, an amazing professor here at UVic. If you are ever happen once in the future times when you're able to go outside, walk around campus looking for somebody that is wearing tie-dye, and you have found Yvonne Cody, who is an awesome prof and a big fan, and a big reason why High Tech U exists as well.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
So speaking of that connection thing, because we're kind of quickly approaching the end, so if we've got people on the stream, obviously I endeavor to follow all of the comments and make connections, but if people are interested in getting in touch with you, are there places they can go to find you? Are there groups that you're involved in? Can they tweet at you? Can they TikTok to you? Like, can they stitch you on TikTok? Which may actually be the new thing we do for Q&A Corner. I might start stitching people. Yeah. Anyways, how can they get in touch with you?
Honestly, I think probably LinkedIn would be the easiest way. LinkedIn, shoot me a message to connect with me on LinkedIn. Be like, hey, I have some questions, and I'll answer them.
Awesome. And just if you're like out there and you're like, where do I find this LinkedIn profile? I will forget this person's name immediately. If you go to hightechu.ca, it's just in the chat. It's also in the description below. You will be able to find a link to our website. And if you go to the calendar for Q&A and look at Q&A corners and you look for this one, there's a link in there to Kaitlin's LinkedIn profile that will live there in perpetuity. But also, it's not a very common last name. So if you look for Kaitlin Erb, that works at Workday, you're very likely to find this one that we're talking to right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last question, the stressful one, and I immediately apologize that I'm throwing a stressful thing at the very end, but it's also my favorite thing. So if you could have the most salient piece of advice, not necessarily related to what we talked about before, but just advice for somebody who's entering their career or is in high school right now and is considering a career in the tech industry, I'm going to put you center stage, and just like, what would be your advice for that person who's right now considering that future career in tech?
I think my advice for somebody who's entering the tech space would be, again, to strive to be introspective, to really also strive to be a continuous learner and to grow in multiple different ways. Like, having that breadth of knowledge, having interests outside of just tech, being able to be excited about learning are all so incredibly important. I think we often tend to think of like, what's the best programming language to learn and what's this? And if you can manage to really strive to work on yourself and work on like how you handle things, work on your communication skills, work on just being excited and having fun. That's really it. I think, yeah, my biggest advice, just have fun, enjoy it. It's a really fun time. Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
I think it capped my salient point.
I was gonna say, no, it's all right. At the end of these, I always clip, and there's like a point where I'm like, I'm gonna clip right there, so when somebody watches, they're just yeah. Awesome. That was very salient, and there's so much good advice in here. So if you're at the stream, because I'm seeing that we got a bunch of viewers that have just dropped in, and you're like, oh, but I'm here and I'm excited. So too bad, so sad. But this is not your last opportunity to engage. If you're here catching it, you can still, in like the next minute, you can throw a question over there. Maybe we'll have a chance to answer it. Otherwise, check this out. It's going to be over on our YouTube channel, which I have linked in the description below, and it's over in the chat right now. I'm literally probably going to upload it tomorrow after I've done some of my post-editing things to it. If you want to get in touch with High Tech U, you can also get in touch with us there. You can find Kaitlin's contact information on there. And of course, you are only 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon away from the tech industry if you're in Victoria or in BC as a whole. So there's lots and lots of opportunities for you to get connected, and we are happy to help connect you with some of the cool stuff that's happening here. So before I say the final good farewell, Kaitlin, I'll leave the final word to you of whatever you'd like to say to our viewers who are catching this on Twitch or on YouTube.
Thank you for being with me and, listening to my ramblings that I hope were cohesive in some way after, a day of work. So thank you so much. I hope you are all excited. I hope you all enter tech, or at least, expand your breadth and try something new in tech.
It was absolutely salient. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So thank you again, Kaitlin, so much. Thank you to all of our viewers for being here. As always, be kind, be safe, be healthy, and we'll see you next time here on Q&A Corner, presented by High Tech U. Bye, everybody.